transition back to the AFC Championship game. And let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens because I was in a good mood when I woke up this morning, had a pretty good day. And so I wanted to be a little bit more positive to start the show. And so that's why I wanted to talk about Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs first. Now, let me get to Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, since he's been in the NFL, Lamar Jackson is a two-time NFL MVP because I believe Lamar Jackson is going to win NFL MVP here in a few weeks. He's a two-time NFL MVP. He has been the heart and soul of the Baltimore Ravens and been the undisputed best player for the Baltimore Ravens since he's came into the NFL. And he is universally recognized as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. But with all that being said about Lamar Jackson had a pathetic performance in the AFC Championship game. Lamar Jackson should be ashamed to show his face in the city of Baltimore this week because I'm looking at Lamar Jackson in this game. You look at the numbers. He goes 20 of 37. He throws for 272 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. His passer rating was 75.5. So you look at those numbers and you may say, well, Trey, statistically, he had a decent game. But this is why I always say when it comes to the NFL, you have to watch games. You can't just go off the stat sheet. If you go off the stat sheet, you would say Lamar had a pretty decent game and a pretty solid performance. I watched this game. Lamar was awful in this game. And one of the things that I noticed as I was watching this game was, for some reason, it seemed like Lamar Jackson was trying to prove a point to his critics. Because coming into the NFL and majority of his career, Lamar Jackson critics have always said, oh, Lamar Jackson can't throw from the pocket. He's not a pure pocket passer. And so, to me, as I watched the AFC Championship game, I was thinking to myself, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, they're trying to prove the critics wrong. They're trying to have Lamar Jackson be Patrick Mahomes, and that was a mistake. That was a mistake. And I don't know if you guys who watched the AFC Championship game, I don't know if you guys had the same feeling that I had, but that was a strange 3.5 hours. It really, really was. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what the hell are the Ravens doing? Like, you got Lamar Jackson. And I do believe that Lamar Jackson has taken a step forward and made progress as a pure pocket passer this season. But Lamar Jackson will never be Joe Burrow. He will never be Patrick Mahomes. And so I thought watching this game, Lamar Jackson was trying to prove a point to his critics. And that was a mistake because there was countless opportunities for Lamar Jackson to run the football and use his mobility to make plays in the open field for the Baltimore Ravens. And he didn't do it. He did not do it. And I'm looking at the Chiefs personnel defensively. They had 6 or 7 DBs on the field multiple times during the game. And I'm thinking, why aren't the Ravens running the football? And I'm going to talk about Todd Monken and John Harbaugh here shortly. But when I look at the Baltimore Ravens, I'm not going to blame Todd Monken or John Harbaugh for the Ravens coming up short in the playoffs yet again. I'm blaming Lamar Jackson, and I'm holding Lamar Jackson accountable because if I'm going to hold Josh Allen accountable for coming up short yet again in the playoffs against Patrick Mahomes. I have to keep that same energy for Lamar Jackson as well. And Lamar Jackson, since he's been in the NFL, his playoff record is now 2-4 in the postseason. In the postseasons, Lamar Jackson, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 1,324 passing yards, completing 57% of his passes. And you look at Lamar Jackson's numbers in his wins in the playoffs compared to his losses. In his wins, he averages 27 points per game. In his losses, 11 points per game. In his 2 playoff wins, Lamar Jackson completes 72% of his passes. In his 4 playoff losses, he's complete 53% of his passes. In his 2 playoff wins, he has 1 turnover. In his 4 playoff losses, he has 8 turnovers. And so at this point, we got to stop pretending like Lamar Jackson doesn't have a supporting cast around him. Because I felt like defensively, the Baltimore Ravens did their job. They did their job. The defense, they held the Chiefs to 0 points in the second half. You hold the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce to 0 points in the second half. And remember, the Chiefs scored. They scored 17 points for the game. And if I'm not mistaken, they only scored 3 points after the first quarter. That was it. That was it. They scored 3 points. No, I'm sorry. Okay, they had 10 points in the second quarter. But they didn't score a single point in the second half at all. They had 17 points for the game. And the defense for the Ravens held the Chiefs scoreless in the second half. And Lamar couldn't score more than 10 points at home in an AFC Championship game with the opportunity to punch his ticket to the Super Bowl? This is on Lamar. Lamar Jackson came up small yet again in the playoffs. He choked. And this is the thing, and I made a post about this yesterday. I felt like going into the AFC Championship game, we had multiple fans of other teams also supporting Lamar Jackson. And for me, I felt like not only did Lamar let down the city of Baltimore and the Baltimore Ravens, he let down the black community as a culture. To me, I felt like everyone was rooting for Lamar. We know how great Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are, but most people wanted Lamar to win just because they were tired of Patrick Mahomes winning. Everybody wanted Lamar to win this game. And Lamar Jackson came up small yet again when the chips were at the front of the table when the moment mattered the most. And at this point, the same way we criticized Peyton Manning, the same way we criticized Aaron Rodgers, we have to keep that same energy for Lamar Jackson. And I'm a Lamar Jackson supporter. I don't like having to say this. This ain't something that I look forward to having to say, but I have to be honest. And the reality is, despite winning 2 NFL MVPs, Lamar Jackson is no different than Josh Allen. He's no different than Joe Burrow. Hell, at this point, he's no different than even Dak Prescott. What has Lamar done significantly more than Dak in the playoffs? Somebody tell me. Somebody come and tell me. What has he done when it mattered the most? He came up small yet again. And so for me, I just found myself, I was really, really disappointed in Lamar because, again, I know what Patrick Mahomes has done and will do. And I thought Lamar Jackson was done with his playoff shortcomings. But you are the number one seed in the AFC. You had the road to the Super Bowl go through Baltimore. And honestly, I would consider this year a down year for the Chiefs. This year, the Chiefs offensively, they're not as good this season compared to what they had been in previous years. This was Lamar Jackson's best opportunity to get to a Super Bowl. Because I'm looking at the AFC, and in his division alone, Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals will be back. The Cleveland Browns with Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson will be back. Don't let the Pittsburgh Steelers get a quarterback. Don't let the Steelers find a way to get a quarterback, because they will also be contenders in the AFC. But I'm looking at the rest of the AFC, right? In the AFC, you still got Trevor Lawrence with the Jaguars. The Chargers just hired Jim Harbaugh. Okay? And so I don't really feel like Lamar Jackson, I don't feel like his opportunity to reach a Super Bowl is ever going to get better than it was this year. The AFC is stacked. C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans made the division around this year. They will also be back. C.J. Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert. Okay? And in the AFC West, you got Mahomes, and the Chiefs, they'll be back next year, of course, for sure. And Anthony Richardson will be back for the Colts. The competition is stiff in the AFC. You ain't in the NFC. You in the AFC, Lamar. So I just thought, considering where the Ravens currently are as a football team and the rest of the AFC at the moment, it's going to be tough for Lamar Jackson to get back in this position. And so I thought this was an opportunity that he lost, and I'm not so sure he's going to get back. I'm not. But with all that being said, as much blame as I'm giving Lamar Jackson for this loss, I'm also going to give some of that blame to head coach John Harbaugh and offensive coordinator Todd Monken. Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo coached circles around John Harbaugh and Todd Monken. They coached circles around him. They did. It was an embarrassing game plan. And if John Harbaugh signed off on this game plan coming into this matchup, having Lamar Jackson only have 8 carries for the game. I'm looking at the carries. Think about this for a second. Lamar Jackson had only two more rush attempts than Patrick Mahomes. Think about that. And then also, the Ravens running game just disappeared. It just disappeared. Listen to this. This is the divisional round matchup compared to the AFC Championship game. In the divisional round, the Ravens had 31 running back rushing attempts. In the AFC Championship game, they had 6. The Ravens had 129 rushing yards between their running backs in the divisional round. They had 23 rushing yards in the AFC Championship. In the divisional round, the Ravens had 7 quarterback rush attempts. They had 2 in the AFC Championship game. In the divisional round, they had 52 quarterback rushing yards. In the AFC Championship game, they had 26. That tells you everything you need to know, and the main reason why the Ravens lost this game. They lost their identity. They lost, and they didn't do what got them here. The one thing that I'm going to talk about the Lions 49ers game here shortly, and I do got an issue with Dan Campbell, but the one thing I can respect Dan Campbell about is he stayed true to himself. That's the thing. Like, I feel like you have to stay true to who you are. And the Ravens went completely away from what got them in this position to get to the AFC Championship game. Like, what are we doing? Like, you try to turn Lamar Jackson into Patrick Mahomes into Josh Allen. That's not who he is. You got to run the football with Lamar Jackson. Todd Monken, this was an embarrassing performance as an offensive coordinator. If you're trying to get a job after that type of performance, you're sadly mistaken. You are sadly mistaken. That was awful. Like I said, I'm watching the game and I'm thinking, what the hell are they doing? What is going on here? They didn't make any adjustments. All I saw was receivers running down the field. It's like they were running verticals. Run down the field, and we pray someone gets open, and Lamar, hey, put your cape on and make something happen. They had no plan whatsoever. Gus Edwards, 3 carries for 20 rushing yards. That's it. That's it. And by the way, Zay Flowers, I love Zay Flowers. I think Zay Flowers has a promising future ahead of him. But that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, and to magnify it even worse, you going across the goal line and you lose the football after it gets punched out. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Zay? Zay Flowers, what are you thinking? He had the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, and then he had the nerve. This was against L'Jarius Sneed. L'Jarius Sneed, he knocks, he catches the pass, and it's the biggest play of the game for the Ravens. And he makes contact with Sneed, gets an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, but to Sneed's credit, he didn't retaliate or nothing. He got Zay Flowers back on the field. And as Zay Flowers was trying to run across the goal line and dive, L'Jarius Sneed punched the football out. Biggest play of the game. Because I felt like if the Ravens would have scored at that moment, you put pressure on the Chiefs, because then it's 17-14. And so the Chiefs have to make something happen offensively. So I love Zay Flowers. He got a promising career ahead of him. But L'Jarius Sneed, the old vet, he made a tremendous play. Made a tremendous play in this game. And he proved and showed mental toughness and got Zay Flowers back when the Ravens needed him the most. And so I just thought all around, the Ravens, they became unraveled in this matchup, and they were undisciplined. And again, Andy Reid coached circles around John Harbaugh, and Steve Spagnuolo significantly outcoached Todd Monken. So between John Harbaugh, Todd Monken, and Lamar Jackson, they all deserve blame for the Ravens coming up short yet again in the playoffs.